All systems go. Cleared for takeoff.
What's up, everyone? Tyler Tamboline here, a.k.a. ToeTagginTambo, and football is back, baby. We're excited here at Ship It Nation. Going to be here every Thursday night on the Mayo Media Network, bringing this show to you guys for free. As always, of course, going to have the same crew. Got my guys Hoop, Title here with me. We're going to be doing this show on Thursday Night Football here on the Mayo Media Network, and then we'll also be free this show on Monday Night Football live on the Ship It Nation YouTube channel, youtube.com/@ShipItNation. You can go there, subscribe. The same crew will be back for the Sunday main show. Got all our schedule. We went through it on the Ship It Nation YouTube channel. If you guys want to check that out, you can see all of our content, all of our shows, the media schedule, everything to go with it. But before we get into it, I want to remind everyone very quickly, these shows are brought to you and presented by RunTheSims.com. We will have a Sims segment at the end where we actually break it all down, go through, take some of these ideas that we've talked about on this show so you can actually get some more value out of the things that we're talking about, and then see the application process of it all, bring it together, throw some ideas in the chat if you have them. We'll check those out later on as well. But just so you guys know, we have a special deal with Run the Sims. Go to shipitnation.com/RTS, or just go to runthesims.com, and you can use it to set it up. Use the promo code SHIPIT. You'll be able to get 10% off your first payment, any membership over there. Justin has done some awesome tutorial videos, some breakdowns of the Sim Runner. He also has Sim Runner Pro that just came out. I know the Sims is the hot word right now, but if you guys want to check all that stuff out, you can do that now. Hoopster, going to bring you in, man, first. We're back. Football's back. We're excited. We got Detroit at Kansas City. Big time game. I know we'll talk about it later. Some injury news. We're going to get to everything you guys want with captains, flex plays, exposures, all the stuff that we're going to talk about as far as game theory, game script, all of that. But Hoop, excited to be here, man. Bring you in. What's going on?
Yeah, very exciting time. I mean, NFL is here, and if you're in our industry, it's like it's Christmas morning, really. There's no other way to put it. Like Christmas as a kid, NFL game one in the DFS industry, nothing beats it. It's incredible. It's fun. Good game here to start Thursday night. In terms of what we have over at Ship It Nation, we've been building this product all summer. Yes, we've had baseball. Yes, we've had PGA content. Yes, we have the best MMA team in the industry in Title and Marley, but man, football is important. NFL football is very important. We've been working all summer to build a product that we think is the best in the industry, all encompassing. You get the picks, you get the plays, you get the projections, you get the tools, you get the Discord that is just a good spot to be. I mean, every single person that's in our Discord, you see the testimonials. It is just a nice, friendly spot. A lot of like-minded people helping each other out. It's a Discord like I've never seen before, and that's for sure. So, we've been working hard to roll this product out, and we think you're going to love it. We've had a lot of people sign up. The momentum is building, and it's kind of just building up to this point tonight where we have this Thursday night game. All our content will be going live, shortly after the show. I mean, we have one big piece of injury news that we're all kind of waiting on. I mean, massive news, which is obviously slate changing in Travis Kelce. So we'll be monitoring that, obviously, as the afternoon goes on. But very excited for, the Showdown game. The Showdown format continues to grow in popularity, and you see it by the size of the prize pools. Every Monday and Thursday, there's going to be a Millie Maker. They have big prize pools on the Sunday night game as well. It's fun. For me personally, it's been very profitable as well. I was going to say that it was more profitable for me last season until I realized that I won the Millie Maker on the main slate. So I really can't say that it was more profitable for me last season, but it was very profitable, and it's fun. It's fun to watch and fun to play. So we're very excited to get the ball rolling here, and very happy to have you guys all here supporting us along the way.
Yeah, appreciate all the support, Title. I'll bring you in just a second here. I want to bring this up real quick, though, because Hoop just mentioned two things I thought was a perfect segue. One, he discussed his Millie Maker win. That is actually broken down completely in this course. So just so anybody out there who hasn't signed up yet or doesn't know what we're all about, we introduced Ship It Nation Education. We said, not just going to talk about it, we're going to be about it. Hoop and myself recorded this course. It's a 4-hour complete breakdown, but it actually has a full Showdown segment in it. So there's like an hour breaking down Showdown, the game, the roster construction, the theory, DraftKings versus FanDuel, all these other things. A lot of things we'll try and cover baseline in an episode like this, but just in general. And then Hoop actually does his whole Millie Maker breakdown as well. So if you want to get in, the bundle price still exists. There is still monthly options. You can get in for this for monthly, and the monthly is $59. But we did want to show off the bundle because the bundle ends on Monday. Last chance to get in. It works out to around $53.50 a month. This gets you access to everything, but you do get the course for free, and it's 6 months of everything we include on the site. So you're going to get access to absolutely everything, projections, ownership, the content itself, the Discord like we talked about, the education course, all of those things. So Title, I'm going to bring you in, man. Talk to us, man. What are you liking right now? What's your thoughts? And then talk to us a little bit about this game we have at hand here tonight.
Man, I'm just pumped for football to be back. Christmas morning, it's one of the second best days right now. Free money Sunday, a couple more days. Hits a little different, but Thursday night football, Millie Maker up top, one of the best times of the year. Rocking my man, the GOAT, Jerick McKinnon right here. Oh, yeah. Always biggest Jerick McKinnon fan. Interesting talking point. He'll be a little low owned today, but yeah, I mean, 4.5 spread. The Chiefs are favored. Obviously, Kelsey, the big questionable news. I felt pretty strongly that he wasn't going to play. But just 2 hours ago, something like that, there was a video coming out that he's not in any pain, that he's going to try and pre-game warm-ups. He's going to go through something, see if he can go. I mean, at the end of the day, like, if it's a Super Bowl, if it's the playoffs, like, there's no doubt he's playing from the sounds of it. But week 1, first game of the year, long season, obviously Super Bowl favorites. I would be surprised for him to play, so I'm kind of acting right now that he won't. But we'll get that news 90 minutes before kickoff is always inactives. Interesting slate, though. 4.5, like I said, is the Chiefs' favorite, 53 total. But I think the Lions, at least a 3-3 or maybe even 4-2 Lions build, might be a little more popular because you know where the target share is going. Amra, David Montgomery, you get Gibbs. But you look on the other side with the Chiefs, we'll touch on it. That receiver room, man, there's 6-7 bodies there, and Mahomes spreads the ball around like nobody else. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. Can definitely leave salary. Millie up top. Always fun talking football, man. It's a lot of baseball, a lot of MMA, love both those sports, but football hits a little different.
Yeah, and with injury news and stuff like that coming out, that's one good thing, too, about ShipItNation.com. This trio right here, all full-time. We're ready to go. I'm all over the guys in the Discord. They know, the over-communicator of the group, trying to make sure everything's up to date. We're all about the members. Members come first. That's what we focus on. That's where our price is focused at, the best price in the industry as far as anything is concerned, value, money, whatever. It breaks down right now, that $59 a month breaks down to like 13 or 14 bucks a week on the season. So very cheap to get in. Some of the notes right quick, hit the like and subscribe. That's my own. Shout out to our guy, Degenerate75. We've got a partnership with him. Awesome guy. He was just on previous to us. Had a great little showdown show. If you didn't check that out after this one, go and play that back. That's going to be one you're going to want to watch. Shout out to Dominic here to support. I think my guy Title took care of this, but if you guys want to check out our Ship It Nation YouTube channel, you just go to this channel here. You can subscribe. It's free to do so. We're trying to get to 3,000 before Sunday. I think we're around 2,700. So help us out with that. We're going to do a big giveaway on Sunday when we get to 3,000, whichever comes first. So hopefully we get there first. Mike, just so you know, every Thursday on this channel, my friend Pat Mayo always hooks us up, gets us out here on this channel to help him out, help you guys out, get you as much information as possible. Lots of good people in the chat. I see Joanne, our guy Hebrew Cheetah, Jason's in here as always, Justin Wahlberg, a big winner when we first kicked this thing off. So just a lot going on. And then our guy Smarty, who does a lot of good stuff over on the site. He put up a testimonial. He did in our Discord for CFB. We got Title a hat. Now, Title is on Team Tambo when it comes to these hats. He wants the big dog. Hoop wanted to be a little more conservative when we get those hats. If you guys want a hat, a shirt, there's lots of stuff coming, but you can go to shipitnation.com/merch and check it all out. Hoop, kick it to you, man. Let's get into it. We're here. That's it. The appetizer's done, served. Meat and potatoes time. We're getting into the slate. What do you want to talk about first here? I mean, like you said, the Kelsey news is a big one. I think that was a piece that, Title had said, we're going to keep an eye on all day. Once we get the information, we'll get it out there. We can talk on this show plenty about if-then scenarios, but Hoop, let's talk about captains. I think that's what people want to talk about, game scripts. Like, what do you see going on here? I know the spread dropped a little. The title's been back and forth. The total Title's on with us has been back and forth. But what do you want to talk about here first, Hoop? Let's get into it.
Well, obviously the Kelsey stuff's big. I mean, we talked about in the opening, it's slate changing. It's going to determine a lot. The one thing, though, that stands out to me with the Kelsey news is if he does sit, it takes away a potential spend up option. And there's not many spend up options on the slate. You have the quarterbacks, you have Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then you would potentially have Travis Kelce. After that, a lot of big time question marks, I'd say. You got the Lions in a split backfield. You got the Kansas City Chiefs with, 6 or 7 wide receivers that potentially get some reps today. Lions outside of Amon-Ra St. Brown, you don't know who they're going to go to. You have the tight end Laporta as well. The one thing I think that, I'm definitely noticing is there is not a need for a ton of value. So I think people will just naturally jam in those big name, expensive guys, which makes sense. I mean, they're most likely to score the fantasy points. First thing that stands out to me is getting comfortable with leaving salary on the table, big chunks of salary. I know a lot of people, especially for hand building, it's hard to leave big chunks of salary on the table. Got to get used to it for sure on this slate. But again, the main thing is Kelce and whether or not he plays. Now, if he does play, does he have a role that maybe is just like a red zone type role where, they get down to inside the 20 and then they bring him in. He's not really playing in between the 20s. They're not going to, even if he does suit up, I just don't think they're going to play him, 100% of the snaps or whatever he typically or usually does play. So it's the main thing on the slate, to be honest with you, is him, his availability, what sort of news we get before lock. Like I said, is he in? Is he all the way in, or is he just in for certain scenarios? So it's very important to monitor here throughout the day. Yeah,
and I'm going to kick that over to you in a second, Title, but I will bring that up, that last point you said, because I was just, one of our guys, Kevlar, in the Discord, great dude, he was just having a conversation. It was like I was saying, it's a good point. His opinion was that, it's, he's not going to be a decoy, or if he does or whatever. I guess my point was, though, just to break it down quickly, was that's where you almost won't know, right? Like people are asking now, if he is he only there to be a decoy? No, ship it. Yeah, Kelce, high owned if he plays, where people will be scared. So I'll bring it to you on this title with one thing noted, is that, like I said, if he's playing, there's going to be enough people, especially with a 300,000 person $10 DK thing, that people are going to say it's the lowest ownership you'll get him at. He would have been much higher owned. So people are still going to hop on enough. He probably is lower than he would be. We'll see how he projects. But what will happen is, all I was trying to say is, you almost don't get to have an opinion on this, because, not rudely, just factually, if he plays and does nothing, people will say, oh, he just went in to be a decoy. And if he plays and they use him in red zone packages and he gets 2 touchdowns, people are like, oh, I told you he wasn't a decoy. If he's out there, he's going to play and he's going to score. You can't win that argument, I don't think. So shout out to our guy, Joe. He's here. He's always in Discord, helping people out, talking through slates, everything. Just awesome guy. But just to say it, I was more so just saying, I don't think you can win that argument, because somebody is going to play, results-oriented advocate, if you will, for this one, Title. But Title, let me kick it to you. Talk to us about this Kelce if-then scenario, and then we'll dive into the captains and break it all down.
Yeah, I definitely think if Kelce does play, I think most people probably expecting him not to. I myself am, but if he plays, he wants to play. His brother yesterday, they do a podcast and stuff. Yep. His brother was saying that he thinks he expects him to play. And at the end of the day, you get hard nose. It's game one. It's a long off season. These guys want to play as much as anybody, especially Kelce. So I assume he wants to. I'm just assuming the medical and the higher ups at the end of the day are like, it's week one. It's just not happening. Use your week. Next week, obviously, you have a lot longer one with a Thursday night game. I think they play Sunday. So assuming if he does play, he's going to be a lot lower owned. I still would be surprised. He's not going to be out there 100+% of snaps, I'd imagine. He'd probably be out there for all the red zone snaps. So you at least do have that upside. He is pretty expensive. Amon-Ra, Mahomes, Goff, all those guys would feel like such stronger plays when you do play Kelce, or if you do. It's just, we talk about all the time in MMA, stuff like that. It's to get different. You only can pick 6 spots in Showdown. Duplication's a huge thing. Who's talking about leaving salary? A lot of people today, I think, talking more captain position, not just Kelce, are going to play one of Mahomes, Amon-Ra, or Goff. There's enough salary, especially with all these Chiefs receivers that are cheap. Sky Moore's way underpriced. There's a lot of cheap pieces today where people can have the salary to spend up at captain and still fill out the roster and feel good about it. So I think people are going to spend up at captain, which makes going to the captain spots, guys in that mid-tier range, not named Goff, Mahomes, Amon-Ra, pretty interesting. That still have that upside. Gibbs, Montgomery, Pacheco. If you want to take a shot with the Scantling, obviously we know he has big-time upside, low floor. McKinnon of the world, stuff like that. They're all going to be a lot lower owned, and they still have the upside to get there. I mean, we saw McKinnon last year after like week 8 or something. He's the second best running back, first best running back in the league. Now we'll get into game scripts and stuff like that. Like Chiefs are up 2 touchdowns. Pacheco could get the ball 25 times, something like that. Right. Chiefs are down 14. McKinnon's going to be out there majority of the time, catch dump offs. It can get that route. So yeah, we'll touch game theory, all that. But the captain spot, I think ownership is going to be concentrated pretty heavily on the quarterbacks and Amon-Ra St. Brown. And going to those other guys, I'll be looking to get overweight on the Montgomerys, the Gibbs, and they'll get some ownership, of course, there. But guys that do have that slate breaking upside, that will be a little lower owned is how I'm looking at it.
Yeah, breaking news. Always trying to bring you guys the fastest information, me and the tidbits, but just it doesn't make the other stuff official yet. But tight end Matt Bushman elevated to the Chiefs active roster as per Rap Sheet. So
yeah, he's probably out then. I mean, I think very likely. That he's out.
Extra days of rest and all the stuff we already talked about. I mean, that just to me, now I want to attack it from that angle. And I think interestingly enough, and Hoop, we're going to get to, I'm going to let you take over the captains with, quarterback captains, what I really want you to talk about first, because a lot of people, and even myself, are in the camp of in Showdown, they get over-owned in that spot. But when you have an island game like this, you have all these values, you have a really good showdown slate in the sense of at least there's all these options. Like no one knows who Mahomes' guys are going to be. And now if Kelsey is out and that becomes true, it's like maybe Title's jersey right there and his boy McKinnon, maybe he starts getting some of those checkdowns and stuff like that. So you can start seeing that. But talk to me, Hoop, about these captains you like and, or how you're seeing it play out on this slate. But I've argued that these quarterback captains is not the same situation as usual because we can put them with all kinds of guys. You can leave $3,000 on the table and have Mahomes with a guy like, I don't know, Watson or something like that, where you're not spending all the money. He's $200 and you could just leave that money on the table instead of a Sky Moore at 4,800 and you're still using Mahomes and captain. And then one last note, Hoop, not to do a runoff, but just to say it. Someone else said this, and I like this call, is if Mahomes is going to be 80% owned, like he probably is or more, where else can you get the leverage? People say, I'm going to fade anybody who's that owned. No, it's like how you get the leverage is he's probably going to be 20 to 30 in captain. And I think we've got him projected for like 27 in captain right now on our site. And you can just jam 50%. There's your leverage, correct, right? So talk to me about these captains. Start with the quarterbacks.
Couldn't agree more. So, I mean, you look at Mahomes specifically, just to touch on the 80% thing. If we think he's going to be 80%, well, the way I'm viewing the slate, 20% of the lineups are dead if you fade him today. Like he's going to be in the optimal lineup tonight. Like he just is going to be. There's routes, I think, where he gets like 16 or 17 fantasy points where he's in the optimal flex. I'm talking about, not captain, where he's in the optimal. With them they don't have a condensed offense right now. They have 3 running backs that are probably going to get reps. They have 6 or 7 wide receivers that are going to get reps. And then if Kelsey is indeed ruled out, they're going to have 3 tight ends that are going to get reps. It's the first game of the season after winning the Super Bowl. Like they're going to mix in these guys. I can promise you that. So, who on the Chiefs can beat Patrick Mahomes in terms of fantasy points? And I'm just not seeing a lot of options. So in terms of quarterback specifically, I think it just, lock in Mahomes. Like make sure he's in all your lineups, whether it is captain, whether it is flex. I agree with your analysis there, where the best way to get leverage on Patrick Mahomes is to get over the field in that captain spot. I mean, he could, conceivably go out, throw 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, and none of his pass catchers have a big game, because I truly think he spreads it out. Now, who is the guy I think that could break out and have a big game tonight? For me, it's probably Sky Moore. I think Sky Moore could be that guy. We saw a decent bit of him last year, very dynamic type player. I could see him going to Sky Moore. But just talking quarterbacks in terms of Mahomes and Jared Goff and the captain, and a lot of people don't like going captain quarterback. This slate's different, man. It's just I can't pinpoint, okay, if you're playing a guy in the captain, you want to say, all right, he can go out and get 20, 25 fantasy points, whatever it may be. I'm just not seeing that. Like, to me, there's like 3 guys. You got Mahomes, you got St. Brown, you got Jared Goff, and then, maybe Gibbs has a big game. So, I think, the numbers I'm seeing right now, the quarterbacks are too low owned in the captain spot. So I think that's the way to, potentially get leverage on these guys.
Yeah, shout out Ron, big Hoop supporter in the building, by the way. Hoop, hoop, hoop. Cheering you on, man. So love to see that. We do appreciate all the
I finally got my name right on the on YouTube as well. I was trying to mess around and get Hoop 2410 instead of Michael Petta in there, and it took me about 5 minutes at the beginning of the show. But we're locked in. Hoop 2410 is in the chat officially.
Somebody had that earlier. I think it was our guy Nate said Hoop the technology wizard.
Yeah,
so he's figuring it out as we go. Appreciate Smarty. Yeah, we're trying to bring you guys the best as always. But I love this because you mentioned something there, Hoop and Title. I'll come to you on your captains and other options in a second. But you know, taking it slate by slate is the best because then you start to get the angles in and you start to think about it. And I even said, like you just talked about getting leverage with that. One of the things we talked about, Hoop, in the course during the showdown segment was the idea of I could actually play 30 to 35% Mahomes tonight in the captain. I'm going to play much more overall, but I could play the same number around the field. But because there is this slate, because the way it sets up with all these weird options, these now maybe tight end options you can go to instead, the wide receivers while leaving 4,000 on the table, all these other factors, I can actually set it up where I can feel good about not having to go all in on Mahomes at the captain, which I still just can't commit to. It's just not how I play these showdown slates where, like Hoop said, he's going to spread it around, which makes him so valuable in both captain and in the flex, especially the flex, because you don't know who it is. But even when I'm taking chances up there, I can get some more unique lineups that way. I also think, and Title, when you go here, I want to get your thoughts. A lot of people in the chat are already bringing it up about the Lions smash. The Lions are going to come through. The Lions 4-2. The Lions can lose by 10 and still have a 4-2 lineup that wins tonight's slate. That's what people also need to remember. It actually has nothing, like people always do this. I talked about this a bunch. Nades, our guy in the chat, and myself, we split a slate last year for $61K on Philly and Houston, and it was a little bit closer game, but I mean, everyone's on 5-1s, it ended up being a 3-3. Tonight, that's not the case. It looks like a lot more people, at least the builds I'm seeing spit out, are already 3-3s, 4-2s both ways. So really tonight, it would look more like the 5-1s would be the way to get different. But talk to me about that Title and then go into some of these captains outside of the quarterbacks that Hoop already talked about, maybe some Goff talk if you want. What do you got here at the captain slot?
Yeah, no, I will reiterate what you said. I think 3-3 will definitely be the most popular. 4-2, I think on both sides will probably be similar ownership. Again, like naturally, you see a 4.5 point favorite, you more so jam that in. It'd be 4-2. The favorite side is usually more popular, but we talked about earlier with the concentrated target share for the Lions, with all the unknowns at receiver for the Chiefs and stuff. I think it'll be relatively similar ownership, 4-2 Lions and 4-2 Chiefs. But yeah, talking captain ownership, like I agree with the Mahomes, Goff, and Amon-Ra. Like I said, I think they're going to be even higher owned at captain than usually we see the studs on showdown slates, just because there's so much cheap pricing. Sky Moore is way under price. Noah Gray's way under price. Like there's unlimited value on this slate. So there's no chance I'm fading Mahomes at Goff. Like I'm doing the 150. I'm getting them, but it's more so about like when you play a Mahomes captain lineup, like how do you get different in that lineup? And first thing you do, like we talk about a lot on this, leaving salary. Now that's not necessarily going to be just right away. You leave 2,000 in salary today, you're going to be different. The nature of the slate, we keep talking about it. There's a lot of value. People are going to leave money. That's not just the right away what you have to do. Another thing I like to do in these large fields, there's 300,000 people, little under that today. You need to beat for $1 million. You don't need to be unique. Like you get 20, you share it with 15 people. I guarantee you'll be happy with the money you're getting later. But try and mix in someone 10% owned, 15% owned. Get a lower owned person in that lineup. That is how you get difference. We'll go later, like a Justin Watson type or a Richie James or Kadarius Toney, little things like that. That's how you win by yourself or with the least amount of people as possible in showdown. You got to get different in one or two spots. But back to the captain stuff. If I'm playing Goff captain, I for sure making a rule at least one pass catcher with them. Probably want to. I'm not 100% sure though, because there's only so many options. There's Khalif Raymond, there's Marvin Jones. Amon-Ra would be one of those guys, but you could throw Gibbs in that boat too. A lot more of a pass catcher out of the backfield. So I think Goff captain is definitely in play. He's going to probably be half the ownership as Mahomes at captain. I do like Mahomes captain. I wouldn't make a rule to have at least two pass catchers just because like McKinnon, if I did make a rule, McKinnon would be in that script. Mahomes does have rushing upside though. And if you only play one receiver, one pass catcher with the Mahomes captain lineup, you're breaking what feels right, like the natural rule. That is also how you get different a little bit in showdown too. Like main slate, you always stack. Showdown, if you think you usually do something, that means others will. going against that, a negative EV thing can get a limited dupes. Something I also look at in this as well. But yeah, I like Mahomes Goff. The other captain's my favorite. I'm definitely love Gibbs. This guy, very explosive, great out of the backfield. He's got a bunch of rave throughout camp. His ADP's been flying in best ball. Like the ceiling, his ceiling is a lot higher than DeMont's with the full point PPR. And just who knows how they're going to use him. So he's my favorite outside of the quarterback captains. And yeah, I'm going to play my man McKinnon. I'm telling you, in captain. Why that is, though, I like him more so in if Detroit jumps out early. Because I mentioned earlier, McKinnon's going to be the third down back. If they're trailing, anytime they're going to be just dropping back, McKinnon's on the field. Pacheco's been dealing with injuries. He had surgery in the offseason. Who knows what his role will be? CEH is back there too. I think they eat into each other a little bit. McKinnon's upside in the right game script at very low ownership in captain is something I'll be overweight on.
Yeah, one thing I want to add there, a couple things actually. You made some great points, but one thing for sure, there's another angle to this slate as well, that the idea of the Chiefs side is so spread out. We know Mahomes and then who? But on the Detroit side, well, it is, look, there's multiple running backs. There's other options. I get it. I'm just saying we know the Amon-Ra St. Brown market share, and with Goff attached to that, it makes for two things. Like, so for example, Title, you just talked about that. So you could have a build with Amon-Ra St. Brown in the captain, Goff in the flex to light it up early, and then you've got Mahomes and McKinnon and 2 spots left to fill. And again, you can leave money, go wherever, do whatever. I'm just saying, like, that to me would make sense because that's who the two combinations are, the people likely to get there for Detroit. And then this, or you can do it with a running back who scores 2 touchdowns and now it's those guys coming back, but you can definitely set it up that way. And then the other side of things, someone mentioned earlier, I keep seeing this all day. It's not the only person. It's fine. I like these builds. 4-2 Detroit is fine tonight. I got plenty of them already, but I'm saying, like, again, knowing, we'll see, I'll adjust once we find out about Kelsey, but so far I was building as if he was out. But just to note it, and I talked in the chat about this today on our Discord, I called them 2-4s. I call like a 1. If I call something a 1-5, it's like if Mahomes was in the captain and there's 5 Detroit guys. It is a 5-1, but the reason I call it, I'm leading with the captain. I think an interesting build tonight would be, again, we know Mahomes spreads it around. He tries to do crazy shit. Like, he could try and run it in a couple times just randomly if they get around the thing, some fake play, or he does it, whatever. But if you had Mahomes and somebody else, you already know Goff and Amon-Ra makes sense there. You can have it set up where it's Mahomes with 1 guy and 4 Detroit guys and build what I call a 2-4. And again, leave money, do whatever. But I definitely think that's another interesting way you can set up and build. I like your McKinnon call. I just don't know for me if he's going to make it into the captain because, well, everything you said makes perfect sense. I have a harder time seeing it where he ends up being the captain play needed versus, 8-9 checkdowns. He becomes the perfect guy to pair with either Mahomes in captain because other guys pick up more, or Mahomes in flex with him and stuff happens on the other side that causes McKinnon to be needed. So I love the McKinnon play. That's just, I'll just say a little bit.
Real quick, in McKinnon captain lineups, I don't like leaving as much salary for things like that. Like, McKinnon can score less than Mahomes, but still because of the salary constraints, that's why, like, if I do use McKinnon lineups, maybe don't leave 5,000 on the table. It's not the craziest thing if he catches 10 dump offs, I'm locking him in at captain today. If you promise me that right now, Tambo, he's all in at a 2% captain.
Well, let's talk about that because that's a good point. Because somebody asked Hoop earlier, and I'm going to let Hoop hop in here. Like, somebody said to Hoop, Pacheco gets 2 touchdowns in my script, and you should be building to your thoughts, your scripts, shipitnation.com. That's what we're all about. It's not just our picks and plays. It's find your own process, make your own picks and plays, and use these thoughts that you're gaining to go build your own lineups. But someone said that, Hoop, like, if you could guarantee Pacheco, I mean, our guy Title is willing to lock in McKinnon at 10 checkdowns, and I know it would be good because the upside he can bring, I'm with you, but I am just curious about Hoop's thoughts on that because Hoop mentioned there is other outs if that still happens, that things could happen.
Yeah, the question was if Pacheco scores, 2 touchdowns, is he optimal captain? Possibly, but it's not a lock. I mean, it's definitely not a lock because Pacheco is not a guy that is good for DK scoring. Like, he doesn't get a lot of catches, so he could get you, 90 yards, 2 touchdowns. Yeah, and that for me definitely wouldn't be enough on the slate because you just don't need the value in captain tonight. We don't have the big spends. Like, the reason you're playing some of these cheaper captains would be to get the 4 guys that we think go off tonight. Like, we've seen those lineups win in the past where a 5K or whatever, 5-6K captain allows you to get all these big name guys that are going off, and you just had to have all those guys in their lineups. I don't think it's a lock tonight. You have guys, especially like Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's perfect for DK scoring. He could find the end. He could not score a touchdown and outscore Pacheco, just because he can get 10 catches, 150 yards, and that's better than 2 touchdowns and 80 yards. I'm fairly certain someone might want to check the math on that, but it's at least going to be relatively close because of the bonus and all that stuff. McKinnon point, I think definitely a boost with Kelsey out, just to add on to that conversation. I like McKinnon. He's a perfect guy for DK scoring. He has many outs. Like now he has another out added with Kelsey out, where he can get these dump offs. He probably gets more playing time if Kelsey does indeed miss. And then you have the out where if they're playing from behind, he's going to be out there and he can, get a lot of dump off. So good with that. Those were the 2 points I just wanted to add on to that conversation.
I got a couple more.
And just a couple shout outs real fast. Yeah, this was what I was going to pull up. I mean, my boy DD, factory worker, baby. Double D, grinding out 150 hand-built lineups today while on the clock. That is productivity, my man. That is productivity.
The boss just loves him. The boss loves him.
Yes. Hopefully no one at work knows your nicknames Double D or DD, because if they happen to be tuning in, you might be a full-time DFS player here pretty soon.
Yeah, DD, let us know your if you can, let us know your DK name in the chat. I want to be watching for you tonight. I want to see. Yeah. If I'm not at the top, I love to see that. Just that's hard work at its finest. I absolutely love to see that. Did you have another one, Hoop, you want to pop up?
There's one more. My man, Aaron Bones, beer sales rep in Kansas City. The Brewskis are flying off the shelf today. Yeah, I mean, NFL fans, they love getting hammered. So this is no surprise to me. I think you could apply this to like any fan base in the NFL. Like they love getting hammered and watching football.
And just a side note, too, because even my wife is excited for this game. I don't know as many people out there. If you watched, I got my wife to watch Quarterback on Netflix. Yeah. So obviously Mahomes, and you think obviously the whole world knows who he is. You hear of him. She knows that much. She's watched the Super Bowls, things like that. But I'm saying the Britney stuff, right? His wife, and just watched it. And she's like, I don't know why people hate on her. She's actually nice. Like, she's a good wife. She's cheering on her man. She's like that. She's like, she's a little crazy in the booth, but she's like, she's literally around that 24/7. So I just thought
Mrs. Hoop has the opposite. Yeah, Mrs. Hoop has the opposite opinion on Brittany Mahomes. She thinks she's super annoying. So.
Did she watch Quarterback though?
She did not watch Quarterback.
That's what I'm saying. This is the obvious opinion versus the court of opinion. When you go watch the real life behind the scenes stuff, it was the whole point of, oh, maybe she's not that crazy, but she gets crazy at games. But yeah, there's a lot of things we could talk about that, but more fans than ever are watching. That's what I'll say. There's lots of people interested in this game tonight. Just a couple quick notes, and then we'll go to some of these other punt plays, the other wide receivers, the other tight ends. We'll get into that stuff. But for me, I do have interest in some of the Detroit side. There was a lot of good points brought up today, but not as many, at least as I see talking about it. Now, again, maybe people aren't talking about it, but they're still clicking this. But both the running backs, Gibbs and Montgomery more in like just Kansas City doesn't have the game that you would expect. I'm with somebody earlier, and we go to the Sims segment sponsored by Run the Sims later. We are going to pull up Tokyo Swans, KC by 1 billion. We're going to put that one in there. We're going to put our guy Smarties 24-17 or something for Detroit. But just to say it, if we did get a spot here where Montgomery jams 2 or 3 and the others, or let's say it's Gibbs to titles point, I like both of them. But why I want to put them in there is because while one guy did settle his contract disputes yesterday, and Nick Bosa, one guy did not. Kansas City, member Chris Jones. If you haven't seen this, you have to watch. It's absolutely hilarious. His combine video, his actual unit slings out and he falls on it as he's running the 40. And he says, my unit, he calls it out. My dick just fell out. But you got to see this guy. It's an absolutely hilarious clip, but he's a beast. And they're going to be without him, obviously, as he's trying to settle this contract dispute. I'm not sure why they're not paying him. And Lamar, we're not talking about Tony because we haven't quite got there yet. We'll talk about some of these wide receivers in the captain, but just to note it, the running backs for Detroit. And then also, I love a good tight end in the top. We're not going to have Kelsey. I'm going to flip to the, Noah Gray is going to be popular. Everyone's going to say, oh, it's not going to be Noah Gray. It's going to be somebody else. And then it's actually going to be the tight end from the other side. So Laporta is another guy I'm putting up top tonight who I think is just fine. If he gets you 2 touchdowns or something like that, people that have followed me in the past know I love these builds. These are how you can set yourself up to get different. Still very affordable, not super expensive, not cheap, just the right price in there. The Goldilocks captains, not too hot, not too cold, just right. That's Laporta for me tonight. So I like 3 of those guys there. Title any wide receivers beyond like the Scantlings, the Tonys, the Sky Moores, any of those guys? What do you got with that? Anybody else you want to talk about? Or on the Detroit side, anybody else you want to throw up top that you've got an idea of?
Yeah, so I'll start with Sky Moore because I think he is by far going to be the most popular pass catcher in this game. He's just mispriced at 4,800, and if you look at it, he is going to be wide, or at least all the talks. He was the highest drafted in best ball throughout the year. He looks to be all of his 19 of his 20 routes have been in the slot. I expect him to get all the slot work. And the Scantlings of the world, the Tonys of the world, the Rices of the world, Watsons, they just have so many other guys. I think they're mainly going to rotate more on the outside, and Sky Moore is going to get the bulk of the work. Now, with us saying that, if he's going to be the highest owned, which I really expect he's going to be, we're guessing at the end of the day. We saw some preseason stuff. Sky Moore caught a touchdown in the Super Bowl. Like, it makes sense, but who knows? What if it is Richie James that plays a lot more than we think in the slot? What if they're running more 2 running back sets? Like, we're guessing at the end of the day, week 1 and week 2. Week 1, embrace. Everyone thinks they know what's going to go on, projections, ownership, all of that. Fade the noise week 1. That's what I do a lot of the time. Whatever. I haven't really looked at Sunday, but just say Sam Howell's going to be 30% owned. I probably have no Sam Howell because everyone, they get gravitated to the chalk. They're over-owned, in my opinion, usually is the chalk. Week 1, get different. Who knows what's going to happen. In week 2, everyone goes. Ramondre Stevenson has 200 yards week 1. Now he's the mega chalk in week 2 because they expect that same thing to happen, and you can get different elsewhere. So why I say that is Sky Moore is going to be the most popular in the 300,000 person contest when they have 6 receivers back there. I mean, I'll just rather give me MVS, his upside. Give me Tony. No one's really going to play Tony. He is definitely overpriced on paper, but he's a big play guy. He was fully practicing on Wednesday. He was dealing with off-season injury, but he looks to be good to go. Again, I don't think they're going to push up. Like, we're guessing on snap shares right now, target shares, all of that. But Tony can take a 70-yard touchdown from Mahomes right there, and one play right there gets you at 17 points or whatever it may be. That could be enough. So I'll definitely play some Tony at low ownership. I like myself Scantling. He's my favorite Chiefs receiver there. After that, like, is it going to be Richie James? Is it going to be Justin Watson? There's been a lot of hype on Justin Ross as well. So I'm ranking those guys. It's definitely going to be Scantling for me 1, Sky Moore 2. Then I'm going to go probably Richie James 3 is how I have it now. I'm going to mix in all those other guys, though. I don't want to go crazy over the field, under the field. Rice is definitely my least favorite. And monitor inactives. Like, maybe one of them, maybe Rice is inactive. I think they all are active because Richie James does punt duty and stuff like that. Rice has had a good preseason, but do keep an eye on inactives because if one of those guys are inactive, I'm going to bump up all the rest of that wide receiver room. And then going to the Detroit side, obviously Amon-Ra, the best. Josh Reynolds and Marvin Jones, the other 2 main guys, though. And you mentioned Sam Laporta. I do like Laporta. He's had a lot of very good Raven camp as well. He was going in like the 11th round in best ball. He was a good pass catcher in college as well. A lot of hype. Give me, and the Chiefs were bad against tight ends last year too. Give me Laporta at 5K, pivot off of Amon-Ra. Marvin Jones is tough, 6,200. Like, he is way overpriced, but that's going to keep his ownership a lot more. I think you could see him probably somewhere around 10% owned. He's got upside. He has touchdown equity. I think I prefer Khalif Raymond to a Marvin Jones, but that's your 3 receiver set right there. How I'd rank them outside of Amon-Ra, it's be Laporta 1, Raymond 2, Jones 3, but at 10%, that is how you win. We talked about earlier in GPPs, how you win $1 million tonight, how you win 6 figures tonight. You got to mix in someone 5% owned, 10% owned, 15% owned, fade Mahomes, make stands like that. That is how I'll be using Marvin Jones in my script.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the kickers after. That was a big topic last year, and I think it could still be something this year as well with Butker and Patterson. We'll talk about that later, but Hoop, anybody else you want to talk about up top? If not, you can take us into just the other positions in the flex, guys you want to bring up, because some of it you can relate back, but I think that's sort of the majority of the captains we talked about already.
Yeah, in terms of up top in the captain, I think Sky Moore does make some sense. I don't think his ownership is going to be super high in the captain. He'll be relatively popular as a value play in the flex, but in the captain, shouldn't be all that high. There's a reason the Chiefs didn't go out and, pick up a wide receiver, and it's not because they have Valdez Scantling or Kadarius Toney. I think it's because they like what they see in Sky Moore, and I think he takes a big leap this year. I think it makes sense getting ahead of the curve. His price, like I said, he's going to get ownership, but captain ownership I don't think will be all that much. I just don't see much else, honestly, that I want to invest in the captain spot. Like, I am going to play those chief guys in the flex, the wide receivers, almost all of them, because I think any of them could have a big game here tonight. But in the captain, I'm not seeing a ton on the Lions side in terms of their pass catchers. Obviously Amon-Ra St. Brown, we've already talked about. He's just perfect for DK scoring. His game fits it. It just fits it so well. If he finds the end zone, he has like the monster type upside that we're looking for in Showdown. But the other guys, in terms of captain, not a ton for me. I agree with the Laporta call. I think he's a solid flex play. I don't think I'll get to him all that much in captain though.
Yeah, and I'm good with that. I think we can check.
Let me add that quick, Tambo. I thought you were saying flex. I don't like any of the besides Amon-Ra, I don't like any of the Detroit pass catchers. I would take more of a shot with the Scantlings, the Sky Moores at captain. I thought you were talking flex again. Sorry. So
no, it's all good.
I can't get to Marvin Jones. I can't get to Raymond Laporta. If pricing was a lot tighter, sure, but because you can play anybody pretty much at captain. I just don't like the upside there. I would take the Gibbs, the Montgomerys of the world and just hope they fall in the box twice, catch passes. I'd go that route for the Lions. But I don't think Scantling or Sky Moore is the craziest at captain sense. I think they'll be on the field by far the most, and the others will rotate more. And if that's the case, you have more opportunity, but still feels a little tough clicking a Sky Moore over a Patrick Mahomes or something at the captain when salary doesn't mean much. But that's how you win $1 million.
That's the thing. You can do whatever you want. I do think that was one last thing, and we're not going to spend a bunch more time because when we get to the game script at the end with the sim segment, we'll get to see a couple game scripts and be able to incorporate a little more. We'll talk about the tight end situation, assuming Kelsey's out, but just real quick, like you said, the last thing is the cheap captains. You mentioned earlier, Title, but up top, it just won't make a lot of sense unless they ceiling out. But when you have all these other options around them, like one touchdown for 70 yards, you're going to think, oh, that's awesome. But all those builds then fit in. Mahomes, Amon-Ra, you end up with similar builds. You're 2v2s away. If it hits, it's great. But I mean, you probably are in a much bigger chop when that happens, even if your captain is somewhat unique. So just keep that in mind. Hoop, I'm going to kick it back to you. Let's talk about these tight ends because talked about Laporta. We know what Noah Gray is going to be in this spot now, and his price is super cheap. So obviously that's going to be a factor. But there is some other guys out there. Do you have any interest in other options, or what are you going to do at the tight end position here? What are your first thoughts?
Yeah, well, I mean, assuming Kelsey is out, these tight ends are going to be popular. Noah Gray is going to be, probably he'll be the most popular cheap guy on the slate, and rightfully so. I mean, we've seen him have success. He's going to be out there. Just sticking with the Kansas City side, Blake Bell as well, $200. Like, he is in play. He's going to get some reps on the field. There's no denying it. So fine with both those guys. Laporta, I think, is a candidate to have a big game, big season. They're very high on him, obviously. But even when they had Hawkinson last year, they're willing to mix in some of these other guys. Brock Wright, $600 is a name. You're not going to go crazy with Blake Bell or Brock Wright, but I think there are punt options to consider. There are slates where if a $200, $600 guy just simply finds the end zone, that's good enough. If they get you 8 fantasy points, you just need that salary because of the way the rest of the lineups kind of fit in and what you need in terms of optimal. I'm fine getting some exposure. You definitely don't want to go crazy on those cheap guys, Bell and Wright, but I think they're in play. Noah Gray, obviously, assuming Kelsey's out, is going to be very popular. And then Laporta, $5K flat, I think is a good price tag. Goff has solid connection with his tight ends. Like we saw Hawkinson and then the scrubs he used for the rest of the season. They had big games throughout. So I think all these tight ends are very strong options tonight. And then, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to say quickly, if Noah Gray was the one where, again, obviously now I think people would lean to him in the captain some, if you're going to do that as a cheap option up there, because you're saying he could at least catch 2 touchdowns. If he plays the Kelsey role, it is Mahomes. He can get him anywhere. I still think the Mahomes in captain with Gray and the flex is better. But if you're going that route, and I would look at it, I would say you would want to leave a significant amount of money because everyone's going to be able to fit. Once you have Gray, Mahomes, you easily can fit Amon-Ra and Goff. You just land in the exact same build as everybody else. So especially
that's where people kind of get a little confused in terms of low-owned captains. They just assume if they have a cheap low-owned captain, up top and that's the guy you need, that they're going to solo ship. That's not the case, because especially on a slate like this where we don't have a ton of spends, like if you play a cheap captain, I will guarantee you the rest of your lineup will be Patrick Mahomes, Jared Goff, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Right? Everyone's going to have that, and then you're just basically a 2v2, and everyone's going to fall in some way, shape, or form in the same sort of lineup. So it's a little bit of a misconception, I think, especially on this slate when you look at these cheap captains.
Also, to add a point too, again, this applies. Why I say I love these shows to apply to the slate at hand is if your take is there's going to be points in this game, like the total would suggest, there may not be. But let's say if your take is that's saying there's going to be more ceiling opportunities. So even someone said, like our guy Boomers in the chat, the Belldozer is my fan TD call of the night. I would honestly, I know people say, oh, if he does it, I'm going to have so many outs to the top and all this. Like it may not be shit. He may get a 1-yard touchdown that's not even needed in the flex, let alone anything else. You'd be better off to bet that. Go bet the anytime touchdown, Blake Bell, or the first touchdown or something like that and have fun with it that way. Because even if he's in there, it's again, we don't know what's going to happen. I'm just telling you the upfront idea of it. He's cheap. A touchdown helps for sure at $600, but I'm just saying there is no guarantee. If it is just a one play, one touchdown, that can get beat pretty quick by a lot of other things, especially if Mahomes, Amon-Ra, Goff, all them put 10 plus. There's so many ways to afford them that may not end up being needed if that's all that he does. Once he gets the 40-yard catch or something on top, then yeah, you're in trouble. You need it. But I like some Blake Bell. I don't have as much interest on the Detroit side there. Title, I'll come back to you for the final thoughts before we go to the sim segment, but just give us thoughts on kickers, defenses on this slate, because I don't think anybody's talking about them at all. We've spent a lot of time talking about these other positional plays, but talk to me about these kickers like somebody mentioned earlier. And then also, we talked about it here, 54 implied total, 29-25, field goals from both sides. They're cheap. Everyone's looking for these cheap options. Yeah, so kickers, defenses, and anything else you want to add before we move on?
Yeah, so defenses are going to be extremely low owned in this game. And it's actually, you look at the total, you see 53, whatever, and you think a bunch of points going to be scored. That's the last time to play defense. But it actually goes the other way, whereas I prefer targeting defenses in Showdown when there's higher ceilings, because usually the pace of play is higher. They're going to air it out more. And all you want is the one mistake, the fumble, scoop and score, the pick six. And after that, you get a 10% defense or even less than that maybe, that gets their touchdown right there. I mean, I remember back, what was it, the Rams and what was that, like 100-something point game or whatever? It was in Mexico City, whatever it was, where it was like,
can't remember the other team, but I
know. Why am I blanking?
It was Rams KC, 103 points.
It was KC, right? It was
yes,
KC. I thought so, yeah. And the defense is there, like 103 points, but because they scored once, or maybe it was in twice that game, but you never know what's going to happen, whatever. 100-plus points are scored, and the defense ends up on the optimal. If they're going to be very low owned like it is now, Mahomes is going to drop back plenty. Goff is going to drop back plenty. It feels uncomfortable. There's no doubt about that. I play 150 teams, though. I plan to be overweight to defenses there. Kickers, they always get some ownership, and I mean, I'll let Hoop talk about it mainly. Harrison Bucker, one of the best out there. Hoop has had a lot of success with kicker. I do know I'm going to make a rule, max one kicker on this slate. I just think there's enough points that are going to be scored, enough catches to go around, enough cheap pieces. You get the 4,800 Sky Moore, stuff like that. The points are going to go around from skill position players, especially on a DraftKings site, full point PPR. Just not sure two kickers on a slate like this. If it happens, well, it probably will be more unique. You can win a million more likely. I just will not have that build. So, yeah, I think defenses, looking at ownership on kickers and defenses, I think come in a little under-owned. And it's gross to click. There's no doubt about that. But when it does work, how much do you win? That's what we're playing for.
Yeah, a couple of guys mentioned there. I'm okay with a Justin Ross. If you want to go there, who's the other guy I was going to just talk about? Not Ross.
Another Watson, Ross.
Oh, right
Rice,
here. Nate says Khalif Raymond.
Man, they have so many guys. Jeez.
These are the ones you're sprinkling in, though, where I'm okay with it. And sometimes you could even drop it down. Like if you on the other side, if you don't want to play a Marvin Jones or something like that, you could just drop it down to a Reynolds or a Raymond, and I'm fine with that. But that's where I can see you just leaving the money, and I'm good with those guys, because they're also guys that can catch like a 60-yard pass, get a couple more catches, and then end up getting in the end zone for one. It just the way it works out if this game's going back and forth like that. So I don't hate that from that perspective. Hoop, kick it to you. Any final thoughts? Anything else you want to talk about when it came to the kickers and defenses? Because last year, I know you were using like double kickers quite often. And like Hockey Experience, who brought it up in the first place, said more opportunities with a high total. And this is truth for a few different things, defenses and kickers. First game, plenty of mistakes. If they, are flustered on third and whatever, and they don't go for it, there's a spot there you can just see them kick another field goal or whatever it might be, or the defenses could come up there. I just think there is some options here. I just don't want to get too crazy with them myself.
Yeah. Just before I go into that one point I wanted to bring up, I think Title touched on it earlier, to make sure to check the inactives, because now just looking through this even more, I don't think there's any way the Chiefs roll out all these wide receivers. I mean, like they have so many guys.
Because of special teams. I think like Richie, like James and Tony out there for some punt return. Rice, if someone doesn't suit up, I think it'll be either Rice. It'll definitely be either Rice or what's his nuts? The 1K guy, Clemson receiver, Ross, I believe.
So they got like 7 guys with.
I think it's either Justin Ross or Rice, if anyone did. But like Richie James because of punt returning, Tony because of that, more Scantling for sure. Justin Watson, he's definitely going to be out there. Ross was good in a lot of pipe in the preseason and stuff. Same with Rice, the rookie. If it's one, and because I saw like they have packages for Rice, or like Andy Reid has hinted at certain little things.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be shocked. It is important. It is worth mentioning, like you said.
I just added Rice a little bit just to put a note on him, because it just made me think of that. I like you said, you pick up little things. I know, Title, you're all over the best ball streets through and through, and now I'm guessing you're done. It's getting really close to game time.
Finally, last pick was this morning. Thank goodness.
So, but you do pick up those little things, right, along the way where you're like, oh, I remember that now, or I'm thinking about that. And if you get that and that's the added piece that you need, that's where you can really pick something up. So I don't hate that, but I wouldn't be surprised, to Hoop's point, though, if it's one guy. Like, it's got to be somebody out of there, and we'll see. That's not going to be a game changer, I don't think, because I don't think too many people are going to have beyond the sprinkles and in the $10 and all that stuff. But just in general, I think you can go away from that a little bit and just wait for the inactives, but it's not going to make a big difference.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. Maybe Rice or Ross is my guess, if one was, though.
Like I said, there's like 7 of them listed with like some sort of projection, so it's something to note, obviously. And then it could shift too with the Kelsey news. If he is officially out, maybe they keep them all active. So something to monitor in terms of kickers and defense. It's if you followed my Showdown content over the years. This is kind of a boring segment, I guess, to listen to, because I always love the kickers and I always hate the defenses, and that just doesn't change. Like I just think these kickers are too cheap, especially on DraftKings. The prices are a little bit different on FanDuel. We'll cover some FanDuel stuff at the end, but like these, low 4K price tags, high 3K price tag, it's too cheap, and you see them on the optimal a lot, and people just don't like the upside, because yes, a kicker cannot go out there and catch a 70-yard touchdown and get you 12 points on one play or 13 points on one play, but man, they chip away, and then at the end of the game they're sitting there with 15, 16, 17, 18 fantasy points, and you need it on your team. So I've had a lot of success playing kickers over the years, and I've played them in captain as well, where it's shipped. Definitely don't think it's a kicker captain sort of night by any means. We will not be doing that, but in the flex, yes. And then in terms of the defense, for me, I've just adapted the policy when building my teams. I just put a fair projection in there. If they hit some of my teams, cool, I'm good with that. If they don't hit any, or they hit a small amount, I'm also good with that. Like, I'm not going to make manual adjustments for defense. I'm typically underweight on defenses. And, if they beat me, they beat me. I will say, though, the one thing I will definitely say tonight is these defenses are pretty damn cheap. $3,800 for the Chiefs, and then $3,200 for the Lions. Those are cheap price tags for defenses. So, I could see myself potentially tonight playing a little more than I typically do of these defenses for that reason.
Yeah, sticking with you, though, just let's do this FanDuel segment now before we go to the Sims, because it's, again, people play it. I know they do. It's over there. There's good contests, big money up top. But what people don't like, and we're truthful on the show, is that they have the MVP. It's the same price. So you don't actually adjust your salary. And then on top of it, they have it for NBA, but they don't bring it over to football, where you can get like a pro. It's set whatever it is, all-star pro and MVP or whatever. It's like, I wish they would do that. But you play over there a lot. You like it quite a bit. Title, I know you've played there in the past. Let's do a little FanDuel segment just for the people who want to know what it's like over there tonight. I'll have a lineup or two. I have a ton of volume on DraftKings, but I don't play too much on FanDuel just because of that. I've had nights where you've won, or you're in the mix and you lose money even if you would have won. Like, just that, I hate that part.
Yeah, definitely don't like the FanDuel product quite a bit. I like playing on FanDuel. Their Showdown, it needs improvement. I was hoping this year. I mean, I know a lot of people have emailed and made the same comments to try to get them to change it. Anything, just add one spot, make it 6 instead of 5. Like that solves a big chunk of it. You know, make the MVP where you have to pay more. Set it up like NBA Showdown where you got the MVP and then the other 2 multiplier spots. I can't remember what they call them. So many different ways to go about fixing this product, and it looks like we're stuck another season with just 5 generic spots. It makes it's impossible to be unique, I think, over on FanDuel. There's been slates where I've built 150 teams and have had the winner and actually lost money, which should never be able to happen. Very unfortunate. But in terms of, you know, differences, DraftKings to FanDuel, on FanDuel, you know, it's very hard for position players to beat the quarterbacks. Like the quarterbacks always have a massive advantage with the scoring, only the half-point PPR. So Mahomes will be much higher owned in that MVP spot opposed to the captain. Jared Goff will get more ownership. Then you really just got to look at it. Who can beat? Like that's how I always frame this up in terms of my MVP selections on FanDuel. Who can beat a standard solid quarterback game? So let's say a good quarterback goes out on average, you know, 20, 25 points, somewhere in that range. Which position players can beat that? Not a lot of guys on the slate. You know, Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think, has a path to beat the quarterbacks tonight. Maybe one of the Lions running backs, Gibbs or Montgomery, if you like one. They'd have to score 2 touchdowns, though, to be honest, to probably beat them. So it's just hard to get away from, like, Mahomes, Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown. And then the salary really doesn't matter, like you said, because you're not playing the extra multiplier. In terms of the kickers, they're a little more expensive over there, $9,500 for Bucker. Riley Patterson, $8,500. The $8,500, that's pretty nice. That's down there as a cheap play. Noah Gray, $5,500. Laporta, $65. I think that's, you know, he's cheaper in relation to the overall salary. He's cheaper on FanDuel, I think, than he is over on DraftKings. And, you know, touchdown dependent site. He's a guy I could definitely see scoring a touchdown. So I give him a little bit of a boost. In terms of other cheap guys, Sky Moore at $8K, very, very cheap price tag. I think he's underpriced. Gibbs is another guy that kind of stands out on FanDuel. He's only $11,000 on FanDuel, 82. He's like one of the more expensive guys on DraftKings, but 11K stands out as definitely a value play over there. And then you have the defenses, 9K for the Chiefs defense, 7,500 for the Lions. Like, man, like they're cheap on DK. This isn't cheap enough for me on FanDuel. So those are just some thoughts. Obviously, you know, the DraftKings product for Showdown, much more appealing, much more fun. But we just want to make sure that we cover a few little points over on FanDuel because I know people play on there as well.
Yeah, if we see anything big, and Ted, I'll let you kick in for a second, but if we see anything big, we'll always bring it up. But like I said, for that, especially on night one, I'm going to have something alternate game script, which we're about to talk about game scripts anyway, just because the field is going to be so similar on that site. And then I got to shout out our guy DD again. He says, "Yo, Tambo, if I ship my GPP, I think you and Pat Mayo should have me out." Pat, it's Mayo. He's talking about should have me out for a round of golf. Don't think that's quite how it works. If you ship the GPP and get all the money, you should have us out. You should take us somewhere, and we'll definitely go. That'd be awesome. But Title, any thoughts on the FanDuel stuff before we go to the sim segment to round out the show?
Yeah, I mean, it's so much stuff over here, like you guys talked about. A lot of duplication. It's really hard to get different. If you don't play Mahomes at cap or MVP, I should say, not captain, you'll get different. But to be honest, if I played 150, and I'm not, plenty of action on DK, like you said, the Showdown format is a million times better. I play FanDuel Cash, but still, I mean, everyone's playing Mahomes. If I had 150 and that $9 today, though, I would have 150 Mahomes MVP spots. I haven't projected about 7 more than the rest. I would take my min cash equity. I would take a little upside, I guess, and try and get different at the other spots. How do you do it? First 2 things that stood out to me, Demont is 13K, whereas Gibbs is 11K, like Hoop mentioned. Gibbs is going to be much higher owned than Montgomery. Play Montgomery over Gibbs, you get a little different. Of course, you still got to get a lot more different to still solo ship or 10 or less on FanDuel. So what else sticks out? Sky Moore, I think, is going to be the most popular pass catcher on FanDuel as well, just like on DK at 8K. Scantling all the way up to 10K over there. Tony, 9.5K. Plays like that, overspend for a less projection than more, but they'll be half the ownership. They still have just as much upside. Maybe it's not everyone thinking Sky Moore, or everyone thinks Sky Moore is number one in all this. Maybe it turns out differently in this. It's only one game. We're not playing a whole season. We're not guessing all that stuff. It's a one-game sample size. Anything can happen. Definitely would be underweight on Sky Moore. I'd be underweight on Gibbs, and that's because I'm jamming in Mahomes MVP. If you don't play Mahomes MVP, Goff's probably my favorite because Amar and Goff are going to get the ownership anyway. It's like I feel like they'll be over-owned anyway because no one's clicking McKinnon. I wouldn't click McKinnon. Scantling, Sky Moore, like you just can't make that case on FanDuel with the same pricing. DK with the 1.5 times the price. That's the reason for it, stuff like that. So yeah, I would have 150 Mahomes, lock them in. I would mix in the Scantlings, the Tonys of the world, stuff like that to try and get different. I would definitely leave salary too. It's a little harder on FanDuel, so look at that. Maybe 4-1 builds. Just think of anything to get different that way. But yeah, I'd lock Mahomes would be the first thing I do in the MVP spot.
Yeah, I want to remind everyone quickly the show was brought to you and presented by Run the Sims. If you haven't yet done so, go to shipitnation.com/RTS, or you can just go to runthesims.com and use the code SHIPIT. It gets you 10% off any membership. We are going to break this down, so I'm going to move some things around on here so we can set it all up, add this in, got it up there now, and then going to zoom this in a little bit just to give you guys an idea so you can see it here. But essentially what this is, so if you don't have Run the Sims yet, you're not going to know this, but you'll want to get over there and check it out. Run the Sims, basically what I can do, and this is what I talk about all the time for Showdown. You go and I go to DFS Tools, NFL, Sim Runner. Not going to get into it all right now with Sim Runner Pro and breaking all the generation of the Sims. That's where you can go check out their YouTube channel at Run the Sims on YouTube and see the videos where Justin Freeman himself, one of the co-founders, breaks down the tutorials, goes into the new stuff. But just to give an idea, real quick, I know a lot of people use this type of tool when it comes to golf. A lot of people use Fantasy National or other sites to be able to build their own model. And this is really kind of a funny thing because it is Sims, it's data, it's all that. But some of the idea behind it is it's kind of the I know ball guys who say, guys or girls who say, I want to build my own lineups and see how it shakes out. So I want to give our guy, who was it? Tokyo Swan said Chiefs are going to just absolutely pound them tonight. So here's an example. Okay. When you're on here, you're on the game, you're setting up your inputs. I'm just going to do the very basic setup of it. And then you're going to just run these Sims. I'm going to do it right now, though, based on the original setup. Just how they had it was a 28-24 game for the Chiefs, right? And it's just going to analyze it and break it all down. I want to see real quick. This is just some of the breakdown of the other stuff that you can do, but this will show in a second here. So this will give you actual lineups that you can break down and see based on that game script. You can go over, you can see all the different stuff, the sum ownership, the predicted dupes, the frequency, all this build style, the type, and all that. But I do want to see here real quickly, just because that's that. This is what I want to show you guys, the optimal results. This is where I say to people so many times when I do my optimizer rants, our partner at the Solver, and I say, someone says, an optimizer is only if you play 20 plus lineups or only if you play max 150. I've used the optimizer plenty in the past to get an idea and then what I call virtual hand build and get ideas to build a single entry or something like that. What you can do here is see all the breakdowns of these players. And so I'll show you this. So Patrick Mahomes in the standard setup, and that's where we'll keep an eye on this, of the 28-24 close game around the total. Where does Patrick Mahomes come in at? He's coming in around 32% owned in the captain is what they have him projected for. This is saying that he's good in the captain. His optimal rate in the captain, these are optimal results, is 44.5. So basically what you're seeing here is they're saying you're actually good to get leverage on Patrick Mahomes, like what Hoop talked about earlier and Title talked about. This is for DraftKings. You can do FanDuel, but it says your captain leverage on Mahomes is really good. So he's a guy you may want to consider. You go down to Gibbs, and this is just a breakdown of this. Again, you go back to the settings. This was 10,000 Sims over time. Gibbs is coming in the industry, seeing him on Run the Sims around 14% owned in the captain. He's actually only showing up over 10,000 Sims in 5% of the optimal lineups, the way it shakes out. So they're actually saying he's a guy maybe you don't want to go to. Again, it's not about who you play, it's how you play him. There's ways you can get different with Gibbs, but what this is saying is he's not an ideal play in the captain in that game script. Now, because this is the first time doing the segment, and just to keep it short and sweet and be able to cover a couple things for you guys, I want to go back for a second just to the inputs. let's go here and let's go 14 points. I want to note quickly, though, that you guys can actually play with it even further. Like you can change Gibbs's actual market share, Montgomery's market share for overall rushing, for TDs. You can change receiving share, passing share for the quarterbacks. Like you can do a lot with this tool, and it's honestly not that advanced. I'm just showing like it has advanced options, but it's not that hard for you to figure out and use. It's just going to take a little bit of getting used to it. So just to show that off, but let's put them at 14 and let's put these guys at 37. Okay, I'm just going the most basic baseline of just changing the score. Obviously, if their score goes up, you probably want to go into things like different market shares of rushing. Let's say now you want to give a little bit more market share to Pacheco running the ball. But again, for the sake of the experiment, that's where the more advanced user can go and do it. You can just run it again, wait for it to go out, and get your optimal results. Mr. Blue, big-time Dak fan over here. I know he's going back and forth to title, but we all got our teams, man. We all got our spots. But just to show this off so that you can see it, now, in that build, the obvious one, again, keeping it very straightforward and baseline, Mahomes, the ownership didn't change, but what did change is now he's an even better captain play. So you start to see where your leverage comes in. Now a guy like Gibbs gets even worse because why would he be running the ball when they're down in that game? It's 37-14. Is as we put this thing out. You start to see some other options. Okay, Valdez-Scantling pops up a little bit. Sky Moore is still okay. Pacheco is pretty solid because, well, he's not showing positive. He's still right there. That's kind of just showing that some of these other guys drop down a little bit more than what they would be in other spots. So this is just one way that you can go about using it. If you have anything in the chat that you want to see, let us know. But I want to go back to our guy Marty for a second. He brought it up earlier. He thinks it's going to be the complete opposite way. You guys right now probably know what you're going to see, but we'll do this each week just so you guys can check it out and get an idea of it. Again, this is 10,000 Sims. Runthesims.com. You're able to go break it down and actually see it so you can check it out. And this is a partnership that we have with Run the Sims. This is an optional tool. You don't have to do this, but the reason we recommend it is because there's options here where you can actually go in and see it. And like I said, take it a step further to see what some of these builds are. And so just looking at this now, in that build, it shows still a pretty good play. He's only minus 5%, but he's not 57% to be optimal. We're talking about Patrick Mahomes in the captain. You start to see Goff and Amon-Ra. You see the guys that are going to be coming from behind where Mahomes is going to have to throw it more. Guys like Scantling and Moore are now popping up. Pacheco, a lot less than what we just saw him at in that previous setup. Guys like Tony getting more balls caught through the air, things like that where you're seeing it. So just to note, hoop title, anything you have to chime in on this stuff, because again, I don't think enough people know about these tools or how to use them, but this is just a baseline version of how you can use this thing to kick off.
Yeah, I mean, for Showdown, I think it's a really good way to get started with something like this because you're just talking one game. It's easy to set up different game scripts. Obviously, the more advanced people will be using this for the full slates. For me, someone that's new to all this stuff, the Showdown way is a great way to get started with it because it's very easy. There's less options. There's less things to manipulate. And, I know this is, something that a lot of professional players look at on a daily, weekly type basis. So I like using this for Showdown.
Yeah. And before Ted, I'll let you have final thoughts, but just a note, like for a guy, Marty, like if you, again, people just think, oh, I see this tool, I don't need it. It's 150 builds. But if you really thought you could nail the game script and you had it right, then you could look at this and say, okay, the best captain option is going to be Goff. So I'm going to throw him up as the opposite quarterback that's the most popular. He's the quarterback on the other side that would correlate well with that. You see DraftKings has the new Superflex game. That's a way to show you that obviously we know that's been known for years. You just could usually only play one quarterback besides in CFB. Now you can play it on DraftKings too. But just to note, you could start your lineup with Goff. You have Amon-Ra in there. You could still put Mahomes. You could put a guy like Valdez-Scantling, who's not going to be as owned as Sky Moore. You can see the total ownership much lower. Now you've got 4 options, just to leave it at that. I'm not going to go fill out the whole lineup, but where it's telling the script of the lineup you like. Now in something like single entry, you may still want to put this. If that's how you believe it's going to play out and that's what you think it's going to be, why wouldn't you follow along something like this and at least give it an idea? Or you can go to your custom lineups and see how some of these break down. And there's a prime example. Jared Goff, Amon-Ra, Patrick Mahomes, Valdez-Scantling, it still fills out. It still uses money, but the total ownership or the sum ownership is 155 as opposed to most are coming in the 200 range. Title, any final thoughts on the Sim segment before we get out of here?
No, yeah, it's just a really cool too. Like some people, like they come in and like I've seen in Discord, Detroit's winning by 17 today. If you really feel comfortable with or confident in that, you can't go to other places and just like right here, we see Mahomes captain rate 26.8%. The first build you ran, it was like 55% was the optimal captain rate. I mean, that's pretty cool. Like if you are confident in your script, or maybe you play 20 teams, maybe you want 5, just say the Chiefs win by 20, 5, the Lions win by 7. Like your whole builds change based on what you're thinking, based on what the Sims are thinking. It's really cool things. So yeah, it's not something I've experimented with as much. I do it more eye test. Like this is cool. It shows if you want, this one's going to have 4 dupes on average or things like that. Showdown, that is very important. There's only 6 spots you can click. There's 300,000 people. There's only so many combinations. That's a lot of good information in that. But I think it's really cool. People talked about 3017, plug in 3017. You'll know what is over-owned, under-owned compared to that game script you pick. Awesome. Check that out over there at Run the Sims.
Yeah, manipulate it however you want. You can deep dive into it. Like I said, you can get into the market shares, break it all down, but this is definitely a way for you to do it easier. Someone said in the chat, like, obviously it's weird. It's different. It's usually what it is. People don't like change. They're not going to like it, or, if they haven't used it before, not going to feel as comfortable with it. But the idea there is pretty straightforward, that if you are setting it up for that, you can actually do your own thing and play around with it. You will get used to it over time, but it's at least giving you a breakdown and some ideas. Again, it's all about the theories. People talk all the time about, we get the picks, the plays. We have those. We're going to give you the guideline. Hoops player pool is going up. My slate plan. We'll all have our cores up on the site. Those are guidelines, but just watching this show, you can take a lot away too. And then seeing stuff like that, you can find your angle in where there's ways to go about it and get different. Remember, right now, this promo does end on Monday, but I know there's a lot of value hunters out there. You guys waited till the very last second. Today is the day. Everything's going to be live on the site shortly. Again, we'll wait on the Kelsey news, but now that having the call-ups and things like that, it looks like we know where we're at. Our guy Boomer is waiting in the midst. He's trying to get everything else done on the site for the numbers, for the projections, the ownership, all of that. You still do get the course for free, which even if you don't take it now or before Sunday, this is another added value bonus piece that you get included when you join at shipitnation.com. So Hoop, any final thoughts from you, man, before we get out of here? Big year ahead at shipitnation.com.
Yeah, I mean, this starts it all. I mean, this starts the run, and we will be back Sunday morning, this trio, 9:45 Eastern, I believe. We're going to get kicked off, and we'll be there every single Sunday breaking down the main slate over on the Ship It Nation YouTube channel. I put the link in the comments a couple times here throughout the show, so make sure to get on over there and subscribe to that channel. We really appreciate it. All the content will be going up relatively soon. We're going to get something up there early. So if you have not already subscribed, you're waiting till last minute. Now is the time to get on over there. Get locked in. We got you covered for the main slate. We got you covered for the afternoon slate, the showdown slates, the tier slate, the primetime slate. We have content for every single slate. So make sure to get on over there. Check it all out. Very excited for this season. Very, very confident in the product that we're going to be putting out there. And one thing is for certain, it is the cheapest all-in price in the industry. So come on over, check us out.
Yeah, and everything included, like you said. So there's MLB content up today already. There's going to be MMA going up for this week. A big contest there. UFC 293. I think it's 200K up top, right? Title. You can talk about that real quick. And any final thoughts from you before I take us home?
Oh yeah, fun press conferences yesterday overnight. But yeah, UFC 293, $200,000 up top. Hey, not very often can you win $200,000 in the MMA streets. We got you covered, Big Marley and I. We'll be talking MMA tomorrow, content going on the site. But hey, it's football day, man. Like a little kid on Christmas morning, couple days, free money Sunday as well. $1 million up top tonight, $1 million up top on Sunday, $1 million most weeks. We got you covered. Every single week, us three will be doing multiple shows, talking showdown, talking main slate, all of our content on the site, stack ranking tool. That's really cool. Projections, ownership, you need that to be successful. Access us in Discord. A lot of money to be made. It was a hell of a year last year for all of us. So I'm not sure I can do the same as we did last year. Hoop, I'm not sure you can get that Millie, Tambo.
We're topping it, baby.
There, but
we're trying.
I'm getting the green jacket. I'm getting the gold jacket on Happy Gilmore, where Shooter walks around all day and all his friends have won the Millie Makers. It's like, I got to get that jacket this year. So maybe it starts tonight. I'm excited for this one. And that's the thing Title said. Last thing I'll end on is this going to be this crew on every the live Monday Night Football Showdown show on the YouTube, on a Ship It Nation YouTube, on the Mayo Media Network every Thursday, this crew. And then on Sunday mornings on our channel, the Ship It Nation YouTube is going to be this crew as well. So you'll get to know us, We'll be here to support you, help you out with any of the questions you have. We try and take our time with it, answer as much as possible. And then we've got all the content, the good stuff up on the site, shipitnation.com. Check it out. That's going to do it for this one, guys. For Hoop, for Title, for myself, ToeTagginTambo. Let's ship it.